Notice of a public meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Brownsville pursuant to Chapter 551, Title 5 of the Texas Government Code, the Texas Open Meetings Act. Notice is hereby given that the Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Brownsville, Texas has scheduled a regular meeting on Thursday, May 1st, 2025 at 5:32 p.m. in the Commission Chambers on the second floor of the Brownsville City Hall, Old Federal Building located at 1001 East Elizabeth Street, Brownsville, Cameron County, Texas, 78520. Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call.
Roll call, starting to my right, please.
Daniel Elkin,
Amalia Benson.
David Ramirez.
Eliza Vasquez.
Aida Rodriguez.
David Betancourt,
Ruben Obel.
Updates and comments?
There are currently no updates and comments other than what I just mentioned to you, given that most of the residents that are here are to listen in to item number 6 of the public hearings. We suggest reordering the agenda to bring it to the top of that set of items.
Okay, we will need a
So-
motion for that.
So move to move public hearing, item number 6 to item number 1.
I second.
Second. We have a first and a second motion. All those in favor?
aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Approval of the minutes for the regular meeting on April 3rd, 2025.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
We have a first and a second motion to approve the minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Items for individual consideration. Consideration and action to grant a subdivision waiver for R&A by the subdivision located in the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the City of Brownsville from the municipal plating process and solely proceeding with Cameron County jurisdiction, and to grant a subdivision waiver for Pleasant Valley Estates subdivision also located in the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the City of Brownsville from the municipal plating process and solely proceeding with the Cameron County jurisdiction.
So staff proposes that the subdivision waiver be granted so that these subdivisions can proceed solely with Cameron County jurisdiction.
I can't tell where they are.
The first one is on Morrison Road, close to the intersection of Robindale. The other one, which is a multiple lot subdivision, is on the corner of Smith Road and Old Port Isabel, right north of the cemetery.
Right, same general area. Okay. We have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I second.
We have a first and second motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Public hearings. Public hearing in action on ordinance number 2025-235.118 to amend the Unified Development Code, UDC, Article 4, zoning regulations, subsection 4.3.4, special overlay districts, subsection 4.4.3, permitted use chart, subsection 4.4.4, additional use standards, subsection 4.6.3, landscaping, and Article 6 definitions to create a medical overlay district and dealing with related matters.
Can you please scroll the computer to the slide? All right. Good evening, Commissioners. As mentioned, this evening we'll be presenting along with our third-party consultant, Friesen Nichols, the proposal for a medical overlay district. And just to provide a little bit of background, the intent is to create an area within the city that focuses primarily on medical services. However, other, let's say, accessory or accessory uses that go along that complement these medical uses will still be available and will be permitted to the public, such as commercial plazas, restaurants, etc. So I will hand it off to our third-party consultant, Friesen Nichols.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council and Committee. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am, we can.
Okay, wonderful. So this evening, as Martin read, we are presenting the proposed medical district overlay and the associated UDC revisions as drafted. In your packet, I believe you have the draft document that outlines the entire ordinance text as proposed. The purpose of this presentation is to run through the highlights, but we're happy to talk through any questions that you may have regarding the specific sections that are proposed. So just a quick overview. The medical district overlay is proposed to ensure development is compatible with the healthcare and biosciences facilities and the uses that are typically found therein. It's proposed to support the healthcare and biosciences industry in the city of Brownsville, and its goal is to increase the economic impact of such areas containing a high concentration of those types of facilities. The proposed boundary is shown on the next slide. This next slide will show a zoomed out version, and then it'll zoom in so that y'all can see where those district boundaries would stop and start. Generally speaking, it's on the east side of Interstate 69 East, on the north and south sides of East Alton Glore. Next slide, please. So this shows the northern portion of that area, and I have a feeling as we go through the conversation about the permitted uses and the specifics of this district that we may circle back to these slides, but this is just to give you an idea of the proposed extent of this overlay district. Next slide, please. Next, please. So generally speaking, the amendments that are found within the document establish a new zoning district, which will be called the Medical Overlay District. You'll see that in the meat of these revisions. As we went through, we also wanted to ensure that we were updating the land use permissions and standards that go along with that medical overlay district to facilitate the types of development that the community wants to see in that area. We also went through and made sure that the proposed uses that were provided by staff were also supported in minor changes throughout the document. So you'll see regulations for electric vehicle charging stations being one as a cleanup item that would be associated with this medical district overlay ordinance. So next slide. So we're gonna move through the proposed changes in order of the sections that they would be in the UDC. So first being section 4.3 zoning districts. This is where we would propose establishing a new subsection E, which would establish the medical overlay district as a special zoning district. Section 4.3 land uses would update the permitted uses chart to add a column identifying the permitted uses within the medical overlay district. It would show also the identification of complementary uses such as hotels, apartments, restaurants, assisted living, nursing homes, and other categories that would be complementary to those more traditional use categories such as hospitals, surgery centers, freestanding emergency rooms, medical research, clinics, labs, pharmaceutical, all of those items that you would typically consider the primary uses within such a district. In order to ensure that those categories met the requirements of the medical overlay district, we also did include a revision to certain use categories, and those are listed on that previous slide in section 4.4.3. In subsection 4.4.4, we did add information regarding additional use standards for drive-throughs to clarify the allowance of drive-throughs for pharmacies within the medical overlay district, and then added a subsection to address electric vehicle charging stations, as the current code didn't reference that as a use in that section. In section 4.6 zoning, we propose updating the references in the landscaping cross-reference section, and that's really a cleanup item to reference the MOD. And then 4.6.13 is really the substantive section beyond the land use table that establishes the development criteria within the medical overlay district. So that's where the specific standards are laid out for this district. And then finally, the definitions were updated to add that electric vehicle allowance as well. So that one, again, is more of a cleanup item. So just circling back through the amendments, the real substantive changes are in 4.6.13 and within 4.4.3 and 4.3.4. That's really where the meat of these amendments can be found. So that is a very quick overview of what's being proposed. We're happy to answer any questions that y'all might have on the draft document that you have before you. Thank you.
So I don't understand the need to have this district. And this is not the only medical area we have. What about Central Boulevard?
So this is the area that was proposed by staff as a first iteration for this draft document. I think in looking at options for the community, P&Z and council can certainly consider other areas to assign this medical overlay district to that might be appropriate for this type of overlay district.
Sorry. To add to the comment, before we went into doing this amendment, we did sit with the commission. We did sit with the city manager's office. And there was an analysis of the city as to where the most medical uses are, let's say, focused in the city and where they're growing the most. Now, with the incorporation recently of DHR, the Doctors Hospital at Renaissance, and their interest in expanding and adding not only theirs, but other medical facilities that will provide more specialized treatment. I mean, God forbid, none of us ever need those specialized uses, but or treatments. We won't have to travel let's say, to bigger cities like Houston. So it's intended to provide or enhance services that currently do not exist while, let's say, maintaining some sort of cohesive use and aesthetic within that particular area.
So if Valley Baptist on Central Boulevard wants to expand, they won't be able to?
No, this ordinance is not prohibitive of other areas, but this is just creating a district in one area. If in the current property on which Valley Baptist lies, the zoning, it permits a hospital. So if they wanted to expand, they would be able to by right.
Okay, the other concern I have is on the south side of Valley Regional, there's a big tract of vacant land there. So by doing this, the property owners, and that was just purchased like last year or the year before, recently. So those property owners won't be able to do anything but medical on that tract of land?
Not necessarily. In the packet that we sent you, in the ordinance and the permitted use chart, it doesn't only provide or allow medical related uses. There are uses that are, again, complementary
The
and
hotel and
that
all?
basically fall under the permitted uses that are currently allowed under the zoning designations that all of these properties have, like commercial corridor, regional center. So it's really not changing anything in the sense that those complementary uses are still being permitted. It's just that it's being focused more to the medical side of development.
And just to add, Will Trevino, city attorney for the city, an additional complementary use that is allowed are apartment complexes, right? And so usually in the bigger cities, you see where they have a hospital district, they'll have, for the physicians, they'll have apartments, right? Because you have residents that are there just in an interim basis. And so the idea of the overlay is to support the growth of the two hospitals that are currently there, but also have uses that are supplementary and complementary to the hospitals. And so there's, unlike the Valley Baptist, where there's already built out of properties, Valley Baptist, if they want to grow out, they would have to actually reach out and purchase those properties and bulldoze, right? Because it's already a built out area. This area still has quite a bit of vacant land that is up for redevelopment. And so this will help preserve the character of the area to ensure that it is allows the hospitals to actually grow, which is what is in their intent.
Okay, thank you.
Was there analysis done on the impact to the residential areas right near this overlay?
There was no, let's say, additional analysis other than analyzing the existing uses that surround these neighborhoods. Now, because these medical facilities that will potentially be proposed within this district are very similar to what already exists and are actually not something that significantly impact, let's say, traffic-wise, it's, I mean, we feel that it's complementary, or it is what we call a neighborhood-oriented service that will provide that, that additional service to the existing neighborhoods.
And then just for clarification on one of the maps, was that a colonia right north of it? I think it's what the map says, but I know sometimes it can vary. If you go back to a previous map, it definitely said, yeah, you can see it very grayed out there. There you go. There you can see it better. Is that actually an existing colonia or not? Just out of curiosity.
We're at,
Just north of the Cameron Avenue, right there, it says Hacienda Gardens Colonia?
well, it's not a colonia, it's a subdivided development. A colonia would be defined that it doesn't have any utilities
Yeah,
available.
no, yeah,
This-
that's why
this-
I'm just making sure it's not
Yeah,
that,
no,
right?
no.
Okay.
No, this area is it's a fully developed area.
Martin, how did this idea, where did it originate from? To create this overlay?
I believe it extended from, all the way from the commission when like I mentioned, when the Doctors Hospital residents came into the city. And when at the same time, Valley Regional, also, had the interest of creating this district, again, to provide enhanced services for the area.
The city wanted to do this.
What's that?
The city wanted to do this.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Any feedback from private property owners who have property adjacent to, in the overlay or adjacent to?
I'll open
Yes,
up to public.
You can talk in a bit. So they're here to voice their concerns. You would have to open up the public comment. From the time that we sent out the notices, we have received phone calls. Nothing really in opposition, mostly wanting to understand what it's about.
Sure.
But again, that's what this platform is for. If they have any concerns, they're welcome to voice them.
Absolutely.
And we're here to address those concerns.
I will open up to, I mean, this is a public meeting. If there's anyone here that would like to speak to this item.
The residential developments will not be affected. We just sent out the notice to you because it's required by state law. So anything inside the blue area, that's what's changing. Anything outside is not changing. Whoa. Oh, it does have a laser pointer. So your subdivision, go to the next slide, Julio. Your subdivision is right there to the south at the bottom of the screen where it says Avenida. Yeah. Yes. So it doesn't affect you. We just have to send you the mail out. Yes, sir.
If,
The tax implications we cannot speak for because we're not the Cameron County Appraisal District or the tax assessor's office. But usually taxes only go up for property that are being developed or improved. In this case, your property not being nor developed or improved. Yes, there will be, let's say, new services in the surrounding area, but again, it's nothing that's being, or it's not happening on your property.
Other question is,
if you can please come to the mic, because
Yeah.
we can't hear what your questions are. What is your name, sir?
yes, the question was that if there will be tax implication for the laws that are within that area or the piece of land that is within that area. And the other one is, you're saying that maybe then like hotels and apartment building built within the area, or they will not be able to do any other type of business, like let's say, you will limit, I have a little piece of land there, if I want to sell it, it have to be to a hospital or to a medical facility, otherwise my property amount may decrease because we'll be limited in the number of people that will be able to, provide services within the area. That's my question.
Okay, so
Gerardo Sanchez.
Okay, so, as I mentioned, taxes, we cannot speak, if whether or not taxes will impact you because we're not the tax assessor office. Typically, taxes only go up when a property is being improved or developed. In this case, nothing is happening on your property. What's happening is within this blue area. Now, the gentleman mentions, would you be limited or would you be forced to only sell your property to let's say, a hospital owner. No, you can sell it to anyone. You're free to do so. Now, this amendment does list certain uses that will focus on medical services, medical facilities, or anything related to that. But it's also not limited just to that. There are complementary uses that are also permitted that, as a matter of fact, are already permitted in the current zoning that the properties have. So even right now, you can, let's say, build a plaza, put a restaurant within that plaza, put, I don't know, some sort of personal service, let's say a barber shop, a spa, things of that sort. But don't feel like you're limited to just, oh, my property, you will only be able to harbor a hospital or a laboratory. No, there's additional use. So for those of you that speak Spanish, las taxas, no podemos hablar por organizaciones externas que no son parte de la ciudad, como la oficina del Tax Assessor. El Tax Assessor son los que implementan los impuestos de las propiedades. Típicamente las propiedades se les suben las taxas al subir el valor de la propiedad, y lo que hace que suba el valor de la propiedad son mejoras a la propiedad. Digamos, una construcción nueva sobre la propiedad o algún tipo de mejora. En este caso, la mejora o la construcción no se está haciendo en la propiedad de ustedes, se está haciendo o se va a proponer dentro de esta área azul. Ninguna de las áreas residenciales que están aquí están siendo afectadas. No. None of the residential subdivisions. So, y para aclarar, la razón que reciben la carta es porque la ley del Estado nos pide que por cuestión de transparencia les demos la carta a todas las propiedades que están a 200 pies del límite de lo que se va a cambiar. Entonces, por eso es que recibieron las cartas. Ahora, no se sientan que están limitados, porque el señor pregunta, bueno, estamos limitados a solamente poder, digamos, si son dueños de una propiedad, limitados a construir a lo mejor solamente un hospital o algún tipo de uso médico. No, no están limitados solamente a eso. El distrito sí está listando usos que están relacionados o enfocados al uso médico, pero no quiere decir que eso sea lo único que pueden hacer. Hay usos que van a complementar el distrito que ya de por sí se permiten en la zonificación actual que tienen las propiedades. Nada más es la intención de la enmienda es para pues redactar una lista que sea enfocada a los usos médicos para permitir que usos más especializados que no existen ahorita en la ciudad puedan ser construidos. So, does anyone?
If you'll come forward to the mic. What is your name, sir?
David Mendez.
Go ahead.
Well, first of all, we're here because in the map, it doesn't show that there's a buffer zone. That's the letter we got. It shows a buffer zone. And that's where our neighborhood is. And then there's several questions I have. First, he says that, oh, there's no changes to the area. There's not going to be any changes to the zoning or whatever. And then he says that it's going to hold the area so that only it's for medical use. So what does the buffer zone entail? And then another thing he said is it's not going to change the taxes. But 2 years ago, our taxes changed, they doubled.
Right.
And nothing changed with our neighborhood.
Right.
So it doesn't, well, they, like they said, they didn't do the impact study for the neighborhood surrounding it. So that's something that I'm worried about. Another thing I'm worried about is because in the letter, oh my God, I get anxiety.
That's
Sorry.
okay. The buffer zone is
Yeah,
what
in
he's,
the letter, it didn't state if you have any concerns. It just says to notify, so you can know about your taxes, call this number. When we called, they're like, oh, we don't know anything. That's all they said. So we couldn't even complain about that. So it doesn't make any sense. He says there's gonna be no changes, and then the other guy says, oh, no, it's gonna be whole just for medical uses or supplementary to the medical use. So there's no changes, or is it just on hold for supplementary use? Why can't they just leave it the same? If the medical area wants to buy it, they can buy it without having to change the zoning on it, because I know for a fact that it will change the taxes in the area.
So what Mr. Vega is saying is that we don't have any control over the taxes. That has nothing to do with the city. That's the Cameron Appraisal District.
Exactly, but it will affect it. So you do have a say in it. Because if you say yes to the amendment, and then the city will then look into the taxes. So it does have a correlation. And we've been living there for longer than 30 years, and taxes are getting high. We live on
Right.
fixed income.
We're all in the same.
I know, exactly. That's why we're here to voice our opinion. So I don't understand what they're saying. It's proposed for medical usage. But then he says, oh, there's not going to be no changes to it. You can build this and that. Well, there's no changes to it. Then why are you proposing it? If they can build whatever, they can build apartments, they can build anything. So what's the proposal then? If they want the area so bad, they just pay for it. And if they want to really make it a medical district, pay for the value of the land that you want to make it. Like, does that make sense? Like,
Yes, except that the city doesn't have anything to do with those kind of sales of land.
exactly, but it does, if you, like I said, if you do approve the amendment, then it does have an effect with the sales. It does have a correlation. You can't tell me it doesn't.
Okay, so the way taxes work, remember, taxes are based on the value of your home. The value of your home is based on the sales in the neighborhood. Taxes are coming out of different taxing entities, the city, the county, BISD, TSC, the port. So you have all these different taxing entities, okay? So it's based off the value of your home, but the value of your home is based on the sale of properties, residential homes that are in your area. So changing this, changing the zoning here will not really affect your home taxes.
Okay.
It's the sales in the neighborhood that are comparable to your home that increases the value, that changes the tax status. So we cannot say that it's not going to change your tax status, because as you see every year, our taxes do change.
Yeah.
You understand?
But because it's going to be of higher, well, yeah, I guess that's it with this. I mean,
So,
The sale of
but what I
hospital
don't
doesn't
understand
affect.
is what, like he said, there's going to be no real changes. And the other guy says it's going to be on hold for medical uses. So if there's no changes, so what's the actual proposal mean?
And-
What does it do?
And maybe to help clarify, because I think he's saying there's some dissonance between what we were both saying, Mr. Martin and myself. So currently, right now, as you see in the map, there's a lot of vacant land. The actual zoning of it is not changing per se, right? So if it's commercial, it will still be sold as commercial. A lot of this land that has been entered into the overlay is, my understanding, not zoned residential, like single-family residential. And then the reason for it is because it's right up against the highway, right? So this is like prime real estate.
Yeah.
And so what the city is trying to do is prevent the type of commercial uses, if you will, that would come in and might not be appropriate in this area, right? Because we're growing north, right? Because we have that Madera project that is being built out. As we grow north, that is where a lot of the residential is growing, right? We're getting Madera, and then we're getting another project that's by 511, I think it's
Estrella.
511, Estrella. And so this area would be commercial. And so some of the uses that we have excluded, right? Normally commercial, you can do a lot of things with a commercial: car wash, a gas station, shopping center. I don't think there's any industrial uses here, right? It's not light industrial. Yeah, but if it, let's say there was a light industrial, we would definitely put in here, you can't do like a industrial use, like a manufacturing. And so what the overlay does is not changing the zoning, but it's a protective, it's almost like a shield, right? It's a protective shield that, well, this lot is up for sale, I couldn't come in as a car dealer and just put in 100 cars, and now I have like this massive parking lot, which by the way will affect, because it's imperial surface, it will impact drainage. And I don't know if I was told I would have to account for that drainage, right? So I might have to have a retention pond. And so those are the considerations that the city's taken into place, because we have realized that there is a lot of vacant land next to these hospitals and surrounding areas. And by having this overlay in place, it will preserve what we anticipate being the future of Brownsville, because right now we don't have any trauma centers. We have to send people to Corpus or even to Edinburgh, right, where Doctors Hospital has wonderful facilities, and we would love for them to extend it down here. And so what this will do is this will help preserve that character of it, right? So that we don't have a car dealership next to the hospital. We will have the ability to have maybe supplementary uses like durable medical supply store, or pharmacy or something like that, or maybe even specialty business like hospital specialty business type of offices. So those are the type of uses that we're trying to preserve. So right now, it's like property values, what they're saying is true. It just depends on what your neighbor's properties, right? It depends if they protest their property taxes. Not that I'm saying you should, but I got upset with my neighbor didn't protest their property taxes because that affected me. And it will still be built out. This is prime real estate, right? So I don't know how it impacts your property taxes because it's based on the comp sales in your neighborhood. But you always hear this thing about gentrification, right? Like the soup du jour of Brownsville right now because of SpaceX. The impact will happen, if there's an impact, it will happen anyways, because rather than a extension of a hospital building, you will have a car lot there, right? So you're still having commercial. If it's not a car lot, it could be an expansion of a shopping center, right? And so no matter what, this is going to get developed in the next 5 to 10 years. And so what the city's trying to do is they're trying to preserve the character of it so that it becomes a medical district where those uses are there, and you don't have like a hospital and then you have a car dealership or, a Ross or something like that.
That explains it a lot better, but like I said, in that map, it doesn't show the buffer zone, so I don't know what the buffer zone means. Like, I know what a buffer means, but what does it entail? Buffer zone entail?
That really doesn't, the only reason there's a buffer zone is that lets us know where we need to send those letters.
Okay.
Within that
Okay,
space, that
fine.
buffer
Okay,
zone
okay.
is where the letters
So it
need to,
doesn't change anything?
No.
But, okay,
no.
that's the only real question I have.
That's a requirement. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Martin, does the analysis or this report that was done by this consulting company address taxes at all?
No, we're not subject to.
Is there anyone else in the public, in the audience that would like to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Sure.
You're free to leave anytime.
Hi, Francisco Ramos. Pretty much, I just want to, it's going to sound like a broken record because you all already explained it like 2 or 3 times. And I just want to bring it out to layman's terms. Like y'all just don't want to let developers build like a bunch of nightclubs. That's not going to, what's the word? Benefit the like nightclub, not anything that's irrelevant to a medical use, right? For doctors that may have to come down and help the community, right? It's going to be something that's going to benefit the medical use, and just I think it's a good thing because it's going to, I guess, keep away all those irrelevant type of businesses that we've seen like over here in Pablo Quezal. We've seen what's been going on out there. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that down to layman's, I guess, a little bit to layman's terms. Get your confirmation. That's it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback, Mr. Ramos.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Hi, can I speak briefly?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Ida Coronado. I'm with DHR Health Brownsville. I did know about this medical overlay a little bit, Now I have a little more information. I just want to make sure the public understands that DHR Health is here for the community. We are trying to bring lots of specialists to this community to avoid that traveling to San Antonio, Houston, even Edinburgh. Most of these patients here are unable to even get to the clinics here in Brownsville, much less, having to travel any further than that. We are expanding our services here. The only thing is that we are landlocked and we are, looking for property to expand our services here and have more specialty services for the community. I just want to make sure that they understand that as well. Taxes, I completely understand it. We're, unfortunately having to deal with that, and we've taken a huge loss trying to expand the services here, but we projected that, and I know, we have to take a loss. We've taken a loss for the last 2 years, but we continue to invest. We're going to be adding an additional 6 ORs. We're going to be adding 6 more ER rooms. We're bringing the best MRIs. We're adding another CT scan. Soon we will probably be doing labor and delivery. So we have a lot of stuff that we are currently working with the space that we have. So I just want to make sure that the community knows that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your input.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
My concern is the traffic. We have a lot of traffic. Oh, my name is Graciela Rodriguez. And my concern is the traffic. We have a lot of traffic as it is in Alton Glore. We don't have any of the, what do you call it, the street light. And we have a lot of trouble going in and out of our area. Making all those new places around us is going to make it more difficult. That's my concern.
So just to clarify, new roads are always built or typically the way that they're built, proposed and built out are through subdivision plats. This area, as per our thoroughfare plan, has an east-west connector that's being proposed to provide and alleviate traffic running from east to west, basically connecting from the expressway to Pablo Quisel. And then there's also another connector that's running from north to south, that's going from Alton Glore and basically curving down by that large property next to the drain ditch. And so all of that will alleviate traffic, but it won't happen until these properties are platted and developed. So part of providing solutions or creating solutions is first going through the steps such as this, either rezoning or creating an overlay.
Madam Chair, if I just share a few words, especially the people that are here, I'm your neighbor. I get off the expressway going home. I'm going to go home in a bit. I go home and I take a ride on Alton Glore to go home. So I'm your neighbor. And over time, I've been passing through here because I live, just on Alton Glore. And I see these properties that are empty and then these facilities that have popped up over where by DHR and Sorala Hospital and such. And I assumed that it was going to become a medical community. I think the overlays is a good proposal. And I understand traffic because I go through there and it's sometimes a disaster, especially when I take my daughter in the morning to school and I hate waiting and, there's a long line. I've never seen those long lines before in Brownsville. But the growth is north. And what I can also tell you is that the city's growing and we're the largest city in the valley. And there's a lot of medical needs that we don't have that other cities don't have. And that's a good thing for Brownsville. I think DHR's done a wonderful job in Hidalgo County. The complex that they have there, these medical facilities is amazing. UTRGV doing the same thing. They got amazing footprint in Harlingen. And I talked about that with the chairwoman here, I think it might have been yesterday. They're doing dementia research, they're doing limb preservation. And there's reports that our area, the border area, cancer, diabetes, and dementia are prevalent. And so I think as the biggest city in the valley, we have a lot of needs and a lot of opportunities to bring those facilities and that care home. I think there's a facility that's going to open up in Hidalgo County. I think it's the university that's in partnership with MD Anderson. You'll be able to get the same services that you get at MD Anderson in Houston, now in Hidalgo County. And I think it's just, Madam Chair, a great opportunity for us to be able to help and cater to the medical needs of Brownsville and the Rio Grande Valley. And it's our turn. And I understand about the traffic because I hate it too. And it's going to get worse if these things pop up. It's going to get worse. And I'll leave it to the professionals, transportation professionals, to be able to help with that, alleviate some of that traffic. But last thing I'll say is that I've heard our elected officials say that Brownsville is only halfway through grown, and we need another. We need another. Imagine half of another Brownsville north of Brownsville. So it's a boom. I think this is really good. It's going to bring only good things for the people of Brownsville and others. My dad was at a rehab not too long ago. Right now he's at Valley Regional, about to make an exit here pretty soon. But I'm very familiar with the area. I'm also very familiar with the needs. So I just wanted to say that I understand the concerns, especially for residential people, people with homes in the area. But that's Brownsville. I think it's only going to get better. And I mean that wholeheartedly. So Madam Chair, that's it.
Thank you. If there's no more comments from the public, I'll entertain a motion to close public hearing.
Make a motion to close public hearing.
I'll second.
We have a first and second motion to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you for your time.
What is the wish of the commission?
I'll make a motion to
Thank you for
approve.
being here.
Second.
We have a first and a second motion.
Thank you.
Mr. Betancourt and Mr. Ramirez. We have a first and a second motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Next item.
Public hearing and action on ordinance number 235-2024-008 to rezone from residential single-family R1 to residential suburban R2 to allow a duplex development for Lot 9, Block 5, Samano partition of the Wymore Tract, Cameron County, Texas, located at Dennett Road, Brownsville, Texas, 78526.
So this zoning change is going from residential single family to residential suburban. The proposed use, as mentioned, is a duplex development, specifically a duplex subdivision. The property is fronting Dennett Road. This is a 200-foot buffer map. There were 33 mailouts and 0 written opposition. And as you can see, it's on the southern side of Dennett Road. To the west, there's already single-family developments, such as the Woods subdivision, and to the north, we have Woods Country. All the area is primarily residential. They will have to rezone to R2 to accommodate the duplex use for each of the proposed lots. And this is just another aerial view of the property. And given the residential nature, the request is consistent with the comprehensive plan and future land use plan. Staff recommends the approval to rezone from R1 to R2.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing. If there's anyone here in the audience who would like to address this item, if you would come forward.
I'll make a motion to close public hearing.
Second.
We have a first and second motion to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Do we have any questions?
So move to, accept the staff recommendation to allow duplex development.
I'll second that motion.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries.
235-2024-009. Rezone from residential estate to residential transition to allow multifamily development for Lot 2, Iglesia Cristiano Niño de los Valles, number 2, Cameron County, Texas, located at North Central Avenue, Brownsville, Texas, 78526.
So the current zoning for this property is residential estate. The applicant is proposing to rezone to residential transition R3 to allow multifamily development. This property is fronting North Central Avenue. This is a 200-foot buffer map. There were 13 mailouts and 0 written opposition. And as you can see, to the east, there's to the east and to the north, there's the extraterritorial jurisdiction. There is residential single family to the west, some residential transition to the south, and residential estate to the north. This is another aerial view of the property. And staff does recommend the approval to rezone from residential estate to residential transition R3.
Can I see that one? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, there's this public hearing. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to address this item, if you'd come forward.
I'm Janet Schooley, and I live directly across the street from the road from this proposed work. And I don't know whether any of you have ever been on Central Avenue, but our road is
Terrible condition.
And in considering that they're wanting to build, and I assume this means apartments, do we know how many apartments they're recommending?
We currently do not require for them to, but the residential designation that they're proposing allows up to 30 units per acre.
And how many acres is it?
This property, I believe, is, it would allow a maximum of 30. However, based on the meeting we had with the developer, they will not be proposing all of the 30. However, they didn't provide the exact number.
Well, I have a particular pothole of my own in front of my driveway. And they come, they're having to come back and back and back to put Band-Aids on it. And my concern is if they're building directly across the street from me, and we have all those additional cars, and not just the people that live there, but the people that come to visit, the road condition on Central Avenue is just gross. It's terrible. And it's not just in front of me, it's all along. Come and drive on that road and you'll see what I mean. And as it is, we've had 100 houses built south of me on the east side. We already have another addition that had been added, so that has given us much more traffic. And I never can get out to the road quick enough to capture all the semis that go by, and they're prohibited from being on our road. But of course, they go by before I can identify who they are and what they're doing on our road. So my greatest concern is that would be one of the things. The other thing is, if that area to me does not, because I can see my house here. I don't know if you can see the blue side of my house, but this is directly across the street from me.
Yes,
And it's not very much wider than my circular driveway. And how is it that these people, if there were a fire or any, terrible thing that were to happen, that there's not enough room for them to exit that property? I mean, it looks to me like they're going to have one entrance and exit there. So that would be a concern to me of that traffic going in and out for their safety as well as the safety of the rest of us. Will there be, in light of this, will there be monies put into addressing the situation on the road? Do we know that? Are you anticipating that there would be any improvement to the road?
Unless I'm mistaken, Martin, the developer of this property is only responsible for that property.
So, because it's abutting the EPJ, and I don't want to say, or don't quote me on it, but I believe this is under county jurisdiction. It's not under city jurisdiction.
Right, we are in the county.
So the maintenance, not from the city.
And is that not taken into consideration when you allow new homes to be built or new apartments to be built?
Well, for rezoning purposes, traffic does not fall under our purview or our authority.
It's not my issue, right? Somebody else. Pass it on. I'm not saying that to you. I'm just saying that seems to be the outcome. Now, when you say this doesn't fall under your purview, do I need to go to the county commissioners and ask them? Are they going to take care of the street if this goes through by the city? Do you all not work together?
As I mentioned, I am not solely under county jurisdiction. However, if this zoning case gets approved tonight, it will move forward to city commission. And at city commission, all the departments in the city assist. So what that means is engineering and public works will be there. They're the department that takes care, let's say, essentially of traffic and road condition. Right there at that meeting, we could pose the question of whether or not it is solely under county jurisdiction. And perhaps I'm incorrect and it is under city jurisdiction. And that's where you could voice your concern to the commissioners, to the city commissioners. And they have, in the end, more authority because in the end, they're the elected officials of the city.
My question is, do I need to do something in advance of that meeting to make sure that the city commissioners and the county, if they need to be working together to address our road? It's just inconceivable to me to add this much more traffic to our road when the road is already dangerous.
And ma'am, if we, oh, I'm sorry, I'm over here. If we can get your name, I know you said it for the record, but if you can get your name, address, and phone number aside from one of our staff members,
Okay.
we can then reach out to you before that meeting. And because I know commission will have that question because it'll come up now because it's part of this record. So we can reach out to you at that time as well once we find out the answer to that.
Okay.
And then that way you'll know if you have to go to the county or come back to the city and, kind of pull our ears a bit.
Yeah, I appreciate
You're on
it.
the agenda to speak to them
Yes,
at that time.
thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ms. Pooley.
Yes, and just to point out, she wouldn't necessarily have to fill out a petition to the commissioners, very similar to this platform or this board. We would present the case and the commission would open it up for discussion and she would just be able to come up and state her concerns.
Okay. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on this topic? Yes, sir, if you'll come forward and give us your name, please.
Hello, good evening. I'm representing the property directly south from that. That one's already zoned R3. We got that one rezoned, I think, 2 years ago with Mr. Vega here. The only reason we haven't moved forward with apartments or duplexes, we were planning on building duplexes there, is because there's no utilities. There's no sewer lines, there's no electrical lines, there's no nothing there. And I think the more properties that are zoned for multifamily there, the more likely.
You'll get services.
Yeah, there will be able to
extended.
get services, split the cost or anything like that. So, I would encourage the board to, or I'm sorry, the commissioners to go ahead and approve this. That way that entire area doesn't look like a rancho anymore. It looks a little bit more as Brownsville should. That's really it.
What was your name, sir?
Ricardo Garza.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Isaac Ornelas. I'm the owner of the property right now that's highlighted.
Oh,
And I just want to tell Janet, we go way back. She knew me when I was a little boy. I would definitely work with you and the 100 homes you mentioned being built in the south. I know a lot of those contractors. If you wanted to make like a coalition and gain support, like a petition or some sort, yeah, because that just elevates the whole property. Just met Ricky, and we were discussing that sewage line and getting more utility. So I also just want to say that we would do our best to improve the property and bring more housing. And what's proposed is just duplexes, not big apartment buildings, based off the density.
okay. Thank you, sir.
So move to close public hearing.
Second.
We have a first and a second motion to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
So move to a rezone from RE to R3.
Second. We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Public hearing in action on ordinance number 2025-235.115 to amend the Unified Development Code, UDC, Section 4.6.4, fencing and screening, and dealing with related matters.
So this is one of the several text amendments that we will continue bringing forth to continue tailoring the code to our city. In this particular situation, the text amendment is for fencing and screening, and it's specifically amending 3 sections. The first one is for residential adjacency screening for non-residential development. The second one is screening of outdoor waste storage structures or enclosures. And the third one is the height limitation of front yard residential fences. And the purpose of these amendments is, first of all, to enhance the safety and security for residential property owners, increment the permissible height residential front yard screening from 42 inches to 60 inches, provide flexibility for residential adjacency screening, provide flexibility for commercial waste enclosure collocation, and screening under unique circumstances. And so this will apply to all new residential and commercial fencing and screening. So the first one, starting with the simplest one, currently the code states that along the front yard, a fence of a maximum height of 42 inches is permitted. It has to have openings or an opacity of at least 50%. So basically, it means that it cannot be a solid screening fence. We have received, ever since this requirement was implemented with the adoption of the UDC, there has been concerns from residents stating that they would feel more secure if the fence was a little bit higher. We've had situations where people have mentioned that perhaps dogs are walking around on the street and they'll go into the yards and they don't want their children to be hurt by them. So we decided to increase the limitation from 42 inches to 60 inches, which is basically 3.5 feet to 5 feet. And the opacity factor, that will continue. And so this is just showing the proposal. Again, the opacity continues being at 50, the height is now 5 feet, and just showing examples of what would be permitted. So the next amendment is related to collocation of waste enclosures and the screening. So right now, what the code states is that a trash enclosure cannot be placed in front of the imaginary line created by the front facade of a building. It's intended mainly to restrict the collocation of the structure or the enclosure for aesthetic purposes. You don't want to see trash from the street or the enclosure from the street. So we started looking at the provisions that other cities have because we have received concerns, especially for properties that, let's say, are quarter lots or lots that, let's say, have 3 frontages. It's very difficult to comply with that requirement because they have that imaginary line on more than one side. Sometimes there's other situations aside from the multiple frontages that properties may have. There's situations where there's physical constraints. Let's say there's a tree or perhaps there's an existing structure. So again, looking at other cities, the way they do it is they permit the developer to put the structure beyond the front, beyond that imaginary line created by the front facade. However, if they're required to embellish that enclosure with landscaping, and the door or the gate to that waste enclosure has to be oriented in a way where it's not visible from the street. So we incorporated or proposed this amendment to provide that flexibility for these types of situations, which we would categorize as unique. And this is just an example in the graphic of what happens when you have interior lots and what happens when you have a corner lot. So the 2 interior lots, they only have one imaginary line that they have to comply with. The corner lot has 2. Then you have to look at your side setbacks because it's also restricted as per the code that you cannot have that enclosure within those side yard setbacks, as well as the rear setback. So the only place where you would be able to collocate in this particular example, the only place where you would be able to collocate an enclosure would be within the rectangle that's created from the intersection of these lines. So with the proposed amendment, again, as long as it's embellished with landscaping and it's oriented in a way where you don't see the container or the gate is not pointing directly towards the street, then we have the same example. And so now,
Martin, I have a question. Yes. Okay, so you keep talking about this waste container and you're showing homes, residential homes. Residential homes don't have these.
Well, no, these are not meant to be residential homes. They're just meant to represent structures. It's not, they could be either residential but in this case, it's for commercial lots. The structure or the shape is not intended to represent precisely residential structures.
If you look at commercial, buildings are usually right next to each other. So in this situation here, you're talking about the setbacks, the easements and all that. I mean, I just don't see it with the commercial properties around here.
Well, in downtown, it's very different. That's why we place the containers in the alley, because there's no setbacks. There are 0 lot line setbacks. Now, if you go, let's say, towards the center of the city, Ruben Torres, all of those areas, they have to comply with setbacks. They do have setback requirements. Therefore, that's what basically creates the lines that we were showing in the depiction. There's, in those zoning designations like commercial corridor, residential center, or even traditional neighborhood corridor, there is no, let's say, abutting, they're not sharing walls or property lines. That's why these provisions would apply to those situations. Again, just to provide that flexibility, because we have had situations where the developer will come in and let's say a corner lot, well, depending on the perspective, you say, well, put it behind the imaginary line created by the front facade. Okay, well, which one? Because you have 2. Well, and again, for example, structures that are already existing on the property perhaps are obstructing the only area in which the enclosure can potentially be placed. So for those situations, just for the purpose also of memorializing it through the code and not just administratively, let's say, giving them a pass, because in the end, we have found ourselves to, let's say, okay, well, through administrative authority based on logic, we allow it, but it's better to have it written down so that people don't refute it in let's say, in certain situations.
I think this is going to be a good thing, but I will make this comment, and it's not geared towards P&Z department, but more to the city. We only have 1 compliance officer.
Well, to address that concern, well, and as always, I mean, I know we continue to mention that we're understaffed, but we're making progress. Every year it does get a little bit better. We have, up until 2 weeks ago, we only had 2 code enforcement inspectors. We just hired another one. So slowly but surely we'll be growing that division to where we can actually enforce these things. And now with, actually we had a presentation this morning at BCIC at eBridge about Acela and Acela training. And we explained to the public that Acela did start back in December of 2022, but it takes quite a long time to actually compile data that will help us justify the hiring of new personnel. Because in the end, we have to justify since we use public funds. So right now, or barely now, we have that sufficient data to start justifying and start saying, okay, well, we need not 1 or maybe not even 2, we need 3, 4, or 5. Yeah. So, the intent is to get to the point where these are easily enforceable.
I can tell you 9 times out of 10 when I'm looking at a commercial property, those gates are always open. They're hardly ever closed.
Yes.
And situating them now so that they're not in the street view is going to be great.
And the final amendment for, or related to screening is for residential adjacency screening for non-residential development. Currently, the code is a little bit excessive, at least from what we've been told from the public. Whenever we have a commercial use abutting a single-family development, they're automatically required to build a masonry wall.
Right.
That is at least 6 to 8 feet high. With this amendment, we're proposing that an alternative type of fence be built. We could allow them potentially to build it out of wood or composite fiber cement boards. However, they do need to add vegetative screening to provide the privacy. So we're requesting for them to put vegetative screening that is at least 8 feet high. And that's why we're providing examples of these pictures where there is a wooden fence in the back, but this vegetative buffer is providing that additional screening to where the privacy of those residential uses is protected. And so staff recommends the approval of those 3 amendments. Any
This
questions?
is a public meeting. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to address this topic, you would come forward. I think that means you.
Make a motion to close public hearing.
We have first and second motion to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Public hearing and action on ordinance number 2025-235.116.
Did we approve it?
We're gonna motion
Make a
all
motion.
together.
Sorry.
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have first and second motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Now, public hearing and action on ordinance number 2025-235.116 to amend the Unified Development Code, UDC, section 4.4.3.e, industrial uses in subsection 4.4.4.a.19, self-storage or mini-storage, when dealing with related matters.
So this text amendment is primarily to differentiate between indoor and out storage facilities. We have had a lot of, well, I don't want to say pushback, but let's say developers will try to read the ordinance in a different way. And to an extent, they're correct in saying that the way it's written, it really doesn't have enough teeth for us to justify the difference between indoor and outdoor. And so what this amendment is doing exactly that, establishing regulations that separate uses based on the interior and the outdoor component. And it's also meant to put or focus the outdoor mini storage use into a higher zoning designation that's basically more industrial in nature. And so the purpose of this, again, text amendment to distinguish the differences between the indoor self-storage, mini storage, and outdoor storage facilities, and enhance the aesthetics and visual quality of primary commercial corridors. What we're trying to do is just keep them, the industrial style storages outside of your general retail areas like commercial corridor. And so this will apply to all new self-storage or mini storage facilities. And currently, this is the way the code reads. It's very generalized. It doesn't really specify the difference between either types of mini storages. And so now it's going to read as follows. It says the facility or area where enclosed storage space divided into separate smaller compartments is provided for use by individuals to store personal items or by businesses to store materials for operation of a business establishment at another location, related activities such as retail sale of packing and moving materials and the rental of moving equipment, including vans and trucks, are allowed as incidental uses. So that particular phrase just means ancillary uses, sort of like U-Haul on Boca Chica, that you could rent out, you know, a moving truck or
Packaging
packaging
material.
for your, let's say you're moving away to another city. And finally, the last provision is something that we just wanted to include because recently there has been brought to our attention by PD that people have been selling
Other merchandise.
out of their merchandise out of these units or storing things that they're not supposed to. So the last sentence basically says the sale of merchandise from leased storage units by tenants is strictly prohibited. And then if you look at the other columns, for example, in commercial corridor CC or traditional neighborhood corridor, which is TNC, it has the letter P with the number 19. Basically, that means that it's permitted with a condition. And so that section was also amended. Currently, again, it's very generalized and it just states that self-storage or mini storage facilities shall be limited to indoor storage only in the commercial corridor and traditional neighborhood corridor commercial zoning districts. But just to reinforce it, we decided to also add some graphics, and we expanded the language to saying that self-storage or mini storage facilities shall be limited to indoor storage where access is made through a common corridor entryway within an enclosed structure and is permitted only in the commercial corridor and traditional neighborhood commercial zoning districts. All other districts that permit this use, as shown in the permitted use chart, may be allowed outdoor storage facilities. And so we included within the text examples of what's indoor and what is outdoor. And staff recommends the approval of this text amendment.
Any questions? Anyone in the audience would like to speak? We have a motion to close
I
public.
make a motion to close public hearing.
We have first, second motion to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
I make a motion to approve.
Second. We have a first and a second motion to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Public hearing in action on ordinance number 2025-235.117 to amend the Unified Development Code, UDC, section 4.6.5, residential adjacency, and dealing with related matters.
So this is the last text amendment for this evening, and this one's related to residential adjacency parameters. It sort of is associated with the residential adjacency screening. So the two sections that are being amended is the applicability section and the building setbacks and height section. The purpose is to preserve and protect the character and integrity of single-family residential neighborhoods, to establish proper integration of non-residential uses by establishing regulations that promote compatibility with residential uses, and to establish reasonable separation standards and design requirements that provide increased protection for residential areas. Now, I do apologize for this last statement. It's supposed to read all new non-residential uses that abut RE, R1, R2, and R3 zoning districts. The 200-foot parameter was eliminated as part of this text amendment. So currently, the way the code reads, it says that any non-single family residential building within 200 feet of the following zoning designations, RE, R1, R2, R3, TN, TNMU, TNC, and downtown districts have to comply with certain adjacency parameters. The one that you're probably most familiar with and that we always bring up is the 40-foot buffer requirement. For this text amendment, we're going to be providing some flexibility, again, related to the screening that we mentioned earlier. If they're willing to comply by adding an additional vegetative buffer, they will end by basically complying with the type of, let's say, multifamily development. In this case, we're changing the definition of residential parameters applying to multifamily developments or commercial developments that are related to residential uses. Now, the distance requirement will only be applicable to developments that exceed 4 units per lot. And it will only be applicable when abutting residential estate, residential single-family, residential suburban, and residential transition districts. And so we're proposing as well, and as I mentioned, that there was a 40-foot setback requirement. Now we're proposing a 15-foot setback requirement instead of the 40 feet. Also, from analysis of other municipalities, this is on average what other municipalities use. So rather than the 40 feet, we are proposing a 15-foot distance. Again, just because they comply with the 15-foot distance doesn't mean that they don't have to comply with the screening that we mentioned earlier. They would have to either install a masonry wall, or if they're willing to add the vegetative buffer, we would allow them to deviate from that particular requirement as well. And so staff recommends the approval for amending residential adjacency parameters. Any questions?
Questions?
So move to close public hearing.
I second.
We have first, a second to close public hearing. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. What is the wish of the commission?
So move to accept staff recommendation to Unified Development Code.
I second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? It is 6:58, meeting adjourned. Thank you so much. Good job.
Oh, bro.